Today, I want to just dive into, I ran a marathon. At the end of April, I said I'm going to do this. And really the motivation was, if you have ever prepared or you've heard a preparation coach for marathons, they say you want to get out on the trail and run before it's, 90 degrees requires. When I got around that half marathon mileage, it really caused me to, that was physical, but the mental, emotional was really challenging for me. So that's when quitting became, listening to the body is something that you have to get. It's a tough thing because you want to, I also went in with the mindset of, hey, I'm only going to use positive language towards myself. Because I knew when I crossed the finish line, it was like this combination of so glad I did it. And there was a bit of, whether it's your parenting, whether it's your business, or whatever it is, the challenge in your life that you're working through, if you can put in the effort, the high intensity effort that's required, the outcome will take care of itself, and you'll find that you are comfortable in the effort.
Welcome to The Intentional Way, where literally every moment is a step towards purposeful living. I'm Bryan Hatch, here to explore the power of intention with you. Learn from our guests who embody intentionality. I'm glad you're here with me. Let's get started.
Welcome to another episode of The Intentional Way. I'm your host, Bryan Hatch, and today, the special episode, Solo with Intention, to explain a little bit about the crazy stuff I've been doing for the past couple of years, specifically around a marathon. I think it was fitting, kind of interesting. At the beginning of a lot of people's years, they set goals and intentions and what they want to accomplish, what they want to do, and who they want to be. I'm a very big advocate of working through that type of a monologue with yourself that is, or a dialogue, if you will, questions and answers that you are producing for yourself. But I love the idea of setting intention for who you're going to be, what you're going to accomplish, some really big plans and efforts. But I don't think we all get it always right. And I found a few things over the last few years that have been interesting at minimum. It's been approximately 4 years that I've been doing something really challenging, maybe to the level of extreme. At least that's the way I would explain it. And today I want to just dive into, I ran a marathon, and I recognize that a lot of people have done that. A lot of people have never done that, and a lot of people don't want to do that. The episode here isn't to convince you to run a marathon. In fact, you might find that the opposite is quite true. We'll find out as you listen here. But I wanted to go through a little bit of that process. Some people have asked me like, hey, what was the story? Why'd you do it? And so what I've done is I've written 12 questions I'm going to answer myself so that I can get to the bottom and root of what this whole thing is and why. And I want to even show you some footage and show you some things that I did and how I was tracking. And we'll see what comes of this and see if you follow along or like this. But again, the theme of this message would be a little more around why I did it, what I did, and what else could be done. This is an episode that is hoping that you get out there and run a marathon. If you want to run a marathon, go run a marathon. And if you don't, then don't. But I still think there's some valuable lessons to be learned in this episode. So one question is, what originally made you decide to run a marathon? And what did you believe it would require from you when you first committed? As I mentioned at the beginning, I've thought over the last 4 years, I've done something kind of extreme. I would describe it as extreme. Some other people might not. And it is involved in doing something physically, mentally, emotionally, at minimum, something like that, challenging. And I'm not going to go into each one of the ones I've done in the past. I might film more episodes if you guys want to know more about those. But in 2025, at the beginning of the year, I'd been thinking about what to do because I wanted to do something super challenging, something that wasn't easy for me to do. And one of those things was a marathon. And actually, initially on the onset, I've got some really good buddies, a few of them have been on the podcast here, that they've become Ironman athletes. And watching their transition from what they did, and I think they're all physically active, they're all capable human beings. But I had this push internally of like, I think I want to do an Ironman. And if you don't know what an Ironman is, it's basically insanity in a single day. Because you swim 2 miles, you bike 112, if I'm not mistaken, and then you run a marathon at the end of that. And that's all typically within 17 hours is the average kind of regular person. But there are elite athletes and people that do it professionally that do it far faster than that. And I've got buddies that have run it in 10 hours. Like, it's just crazy. So when I looked at like maybe doing an Ironman, I thought, well, if I can't prove to myself that I can run a marathon, there's no way I should have business doing an Ironman. Whether that's perfect mentality or not, it doesn't really matter to me. Some people say just go for the Ironman or go for a half Ironman. It's better training. But I thought, dude, if I'm going to have to run a marathon and I can't do that by itself, I don't think I'm going to do an Ironman. So I had been kind of hemming and hawing with this. I've been training with some buddies, doing some things. And ultimately, it was the last week of April 2025 that I said, I'm going to do this. I hadn't run any distance. I do cardiovascular exercise, play sports. So I wasn't out of shape starting, but I certainly wasn't in a marathon shape to begin with. But I had not run any significant miles, nothing over, like, again, playing sports, you kind of run, jog, sprint. And so there's like miles I'd put in, but not significant that whole year, the first 4 months of the year. I'd been hitting the gym, I'd been working out, but I hadn't been doing endurance training. So in April, end of April, I said, I'm going to do this. And really the motivation was I want to do something super hard. It's a misogi that I've learned from the book, The Comfort Crisis. Michael Easter, I think that is a great author, somebody that you should pay attention to if you want to do big, challenging things in your life. And I would just submit that most people, I mean, everybody could benefit from reading that book. So I set out to start. And in April, I ran a little bit. And I'm going to pull up some of my stats so you can see those. But I put in April, not even 13 miles. So 408% better than last year. It's because I didn't run at all. So this training shows you the amount of miles I put in on a weekly basis and hit that almost that 40 mark towards the end, where some people would say that you should be hitting that much earlier and much more often than I did, which, you know, maybe be the better way to look at it. But either way, to hit 298.2 miles in 5 months training for a marathon, I didn't even think that was possible. I didn't even know that I was going to run that many miles. So it's kind of exciting to see that led up to the marathon. Now, if you have ever prepared or you've heard a preparation coach for marathons, they say you want to be between 25 to 40 miles a week. As you're getting into some of the lengthier weeks, it's not that it has to be like that every week. But I put together a program and I used different AI tools. I used different programs that I found online from experts that have been doing this for a long time. And I cobbled together like a program. And I just said, oh, I'm going to stick to this program. And yeah, I started running, basically was what it was. I had some shoes. I live in Arizona. It's warm that time of the year, so it wasn't challenging to get out and start running. And that was pretty much when I started. That was what I did. And I knew it would take a lot of miles. I had a buddy that had done it recently, just a marathon. He's a marathon runner. And he was the one that said, hey, you need to put about 40 miles in every week between all your runs. You need to have some rest days and, you know, nutrition. I got some like basics out of the way. But it was just the idea of if I can do this really hard thing, I can do other really hard things. So that's basically what I feel like is my answer to the first question. Okay, another question is, at what point in training did you realize this was going to cost more than just time and physical effort? When I looked at the training that I had to put in, I knew I'd have to run at least 3, if not 4 to 5 times a week. And I had short runs. I needed to be at 4, 6, 7, 8 miles. And then I'd have to get up to, you know, leading up to the marathon. I'd planned to do a marathon in September. And some people are like, that's crazy. Why September? Well, some people love to train in the winter time. I know it's cooler in Arizona. It's way cooler. You're running at like ideal temperatures, 40s, 50s. It's like really ideal when you're running long distances because your body stays cool. But I find that I can train a whole lot more in the summertime because I don't have to get up and take care of my kids. As a father, I really love being there for my kids. So I just knew that if I could train through the summer, even though it'd be hot here, that would be easier for me to do than if I trained during the winter and did something else. So there's a lot of marathons that actually are run in January, February, March across the country. Not all of them, but I knew that I wanted to do that. So I was looking for somewhere I could run a marathon. And I found one up in just outside of Eugene, Oregon. in September. So I thought, well, I mean, ideal conditions, it's flat, it's easy, and I was looking for an easy way to do a marathon, honestly. But as I got running, the first couple weeks, it was just like training my body to get in the mode, to get in to run that much. I've been working out, doing things, but I hadn't run that much. So it was the bang it out, grind it out, the hard work of getting through those miles. So I realized that it was going to be a harder bit of training because of the endurance, of the consistent grind. But it also cost a lot with, I wouldn't say a ton, but a lot with my family. Saturday mornings, other times when I could have been hanging out with some of my buddies. Definitely early mornings, not sleeping in. I mean, in Arizona, you got to wake up really early. So to get out on the trail and run before it's 90 degrees requires a 4:30 in the morning start time, and that was challenging. But the other thing that I recognize is that it's a mental game. I mean, there's physical things that happen, but there's a mental game going on at the same time of like, do I have to do this? Do I need to do this? Why am I doing this? And the longer those miles became, the more that started to creep in. And I could get 4 miles in pretty easily. 4 miles wasn't too challenging at a certain level. And maybe that's where my endurance had kind of led me. But then when I got up around 8 and 9 and that 10-digit mark, it started to play with me mentally. And I found that to be probably one of the more challenging parts of all of this. And it's funny because you train for a marathon, but it's the training that is the marathon. Because the marathon is a day, it's a point in time. You go and run it, you pound it out, whether you succeed or fail or whatever your goal is. But the training is the stuff. And I knew that the more training that I put off, like if I slept in or I didn't get up and run, the more that I didn't do that, the harder the day of the marathon was going to be. So that was like the fear that I put in my own mind of like, hey, if I don't do it now, it's going to hurt way more then. And I want to perform then. So yeah, it was a total mental game, something that definitely created a lot of thoughts, but also required a lot of my mental capacity to focus. Another question. How did your relationship with running change once the weekly mileage and long runs became unavoidable? Oh, that's a good question. I know that you're going to laugh at that because I wrote these questions. But, I had some help with friends to get some of these questions rolling. When I had to get over double digits, I knew that I'd have to put in a couple hours on the pavement, and that's not fun. I mean, just running for 2 hours. I've never been a runner. I didn't grow up doing the long distances. I was always a sprinter, or at least short-term stuff. Football, baseball, just very short and spurts of go hard and then you're done for a little while. And so I didn't have this like thing in me that was like endure and you keep getting this pain cave. I've heard some professional athletes, the pain cave, you just get in there and you just like grind it out. And I was like, dude, I avoid the pain cave at all costs. And so when I knew I had to get up a higher mileages, it was that double digit mark that really started to play with my mind. And half marathon that I ran in training was with two of my buddies that I've been training with and doing many things with, short runs, interval training, a VO2 max, and there's all kinds of stuff that I don't understand that is still interesting to me, but it's like it's stretching your physical lung and oxygen capacity to do more. And when I got around that half marathon mileage, it really caused me to decide if I wanted to do this. Like running 7, 8, 9 miles, it was challenging for sure, but I could do it. And I remember ending that first half marathon with my buddies, and I felt accomplished. I felt like, wow, I did something. I'd never run a half marathon in my life before, and so that was significant to me. And so that felt good, but there's also a challenge in it. Like, I hate this running thing. I didn't come to love the running, although I did find when I was around my friends or other people to train with, it was far better for me. That was one of the biggest ahas or realizations that I had, was that when I was by myself, those higher mileages were much harder. And when I was with a group of friends or other people to train with, it was far easier to grind those miles out because there's conversation. And you might think you're running. Are you talking? Yeah, you're still talking because you're not running super fast. Yeah. So that's a little bit how my relationship changed with running, was that it got more and more challenging the higher the mileage has got.
Hey, real quick, if you're enjoying this episode, please subscribe, follow, and download our episode. Your support allows us to bring more intentional guests just like this, and it means the world to us. Now, let's get back to the episode.
All right, this next question is a doozy. Can you describe the moment during training when quitting stopped feeling emotional and started feeling logical? I remember the day. I remember the time. I'd run a couple half marathons, and I needed to get this specific week in my training regimen, I needed to get over 15 miles. Between 15 and 16 is what it called for. So I said, hey, let's go for 15.3 or 15 and a half is what I'll shoot for. But I knew that I'd be doing it alone because my buddies are already training different things. I mean, when you're training with Ironman, like they got to swim and they got to bike, and I'm just running myself, just running. So I had planned on this day, and I knew I was going to run 15 miles, that I had to have, I don't know, 3 hours of time at minimum and make sure I had my nutrition. I mean, you got to put calories in to do that. It's not just drinking electrolytes and going when you're starting at 82 to 83 degrees. And that's at 4:30 a.m. It was 80, 82 or 83 that morning. And I went on that run, and the tough thing was I got on this specific trail. I had some newer shoes on that I'd been working on. They were pretty high, like really padded, foamy, but I was also pretty high off the ground. And just before my 4 mile mark, which is 4 miles for me, is like I could do it really easily because my pace was between 8 and 9 minutes per mile. And so it was pretty easy pace for me. And at 4 miles, I had kind of lost concentration and I rolled my ankle, but this shoe was so high that I rolled really hard. I felt a zing, like electric shock past my knee, like up to my thigh, is how bad that hurt. I didn't hear anything pop, I didn't hear anything break. And so I was really worried that I was already toast out of the gate. And so I stopped and I walked in circles for a little bit, trying to stay on it and to not let it go crazy or let it swell. But ultimately, I feel like, okay, I'm not injured. That just didn't feel good. And so I continued the effort. I ran this course quite a long time, and then I started to come back in a different direction. It's a big loop. And there were so many times that I wanted to quit. And there were many times, there were half a dozen times that I walked. It was so hot. I was drinking I had all my water on me, all my electrolytes on me, all my nutrition on me. So it wasn't like I didn't have water stashed. It wasn't super heavy, but I had a lot of nutrition I was putting in. So I didn't feel like I was losing a lot of sodium that you need while you're going. But mentally, man, it was really challenging. I was by myself. There's no one else around me. For the first hour and a half, I didn't see very many people. After that, I started seeing a lot of people coming and going depending on the trail I was on. But there's no one with me. And so I'm listening to audiobooks, I'm listening to podcasts, I'm trying to keep my mind busy and take it off of the pain that I'm feeling. And this is when I started having LCL. I had like ligament problem. I had shooting pain from my sciatica. And I started having more physical challenges that I just didn't like. Mid-run, we were in the low 90s. And then by the end of my run, it was 96 degrees. And that was super challenging. I think that when I finally ended, it might have been 98 to 99 when I finally ended my run. But the mental game was so challenging that day. It made me question, why am I doing this? What was the point of doing this? And I was only 15. I wasn't running a whole marathon here. And so when I thought about that, like, why am I doing this? All the people that I love that push me in this direction, like, where are they? They're moving or they're gone or I'm not seeing them. So why am I doing this? What's the point of all this? And I was about in tears. I wasn't crying, but I was just emotional and like definitely dark. I was very pessimistic to myself, down on myself for when I stopped and walked, or it's like, man, don't be a pansy, like get going. So it was really challenging. And it just kind of got dark. At the end of that whole thing, I was walking the last quarter mile, and I was near my home, and it was just blistering hot. And I remember a neighbor of mine, he drove past me on his way out, and he said, "Hey, how you doing?" And I was like, "Man, I don't know. I don't know, man. I don't know why I'm doing this." And he laughs, and he's done some endurance stuff himself, and super talented guy. And he said, "All right, well," gave me some positive words of encouragement. And after I left him, I pulled out my phone and I texted my training buddies, 3 of them. And we're on a group chat and a group text message. And this is what I told them. I'm going to pull it up. So this is Friday, August 1st at 9:15 a.m. I had to get to work this day. I still had to do a lot. It wasn't like it was a day off for me. And as I'm walking back to my house in the last quarter mile, I wrote this to my training buddies. "Hey guys, I don't want to make this long. I've given this lots of thought. I've been training because primarily I love my association with the 3 of you. And despite challenges, when I simply look at it, at what I want, training alone is not healthy for me right now. I need to compete. And when I only get to compete far into the future, it doesn't light my fire. I've got several things I'm working on, and training this hard and then finishing and feeling dead as opposed to feeling alive does not align for me right now in my life. I know I can separate training from my relationship with you guys, but it feels like a loss when I say I don't want to train like this anymore. I need some wins like next week, not wins in 2026. That was my way of throwing in the towel, like saying I'm done. I had never run over a half marathon, and I'd only run that twice before. You got to realize a couple miles is my max. And so on this August 1st day, I basically threw in the towel and said, I'm done. I got friends back like, "Hey, that demon comes for all us from time to time. You killed this morning, by the way. Way to go, no joke." All these things started coming in from my buddies. Hey, definitions of why. Hey, I'll jump in here. And hey, we all have these moments, and that kind of stuff. And they all poked fun at me. Eventually said, "Hey man, you can't drunk dial us." Basically, within 2 hours of training something that hard, you can't text the group with anything that's on your mind. After the fact, when you have your wits about you, you can text whatever you want. And that was good advice as well. So that quitting seemed like the smartest thing. And ultimately, I had quit emotionally and mentally. And it wasn't until my buddy, one of those 3 guys that I was training with, said, "Dude, I'm going to run this stupid marathon with you. Let's do it." And he didn't do it out of spite. I knew he did it out of the goodness of his heart, but he didn't have to do it. He was already training for other things. And he'll never know how much that mattered to me, because being alone in the fight, in that training, was torture. Probably more torture than the physical, brutal running every day or every other day, and then barely getting healed up and then running again. That was physical, but the mental, emotional was really challenging for me. So that's when quitting became like a real viable option. And I wouldn't have gone through with a marathon if I hadn't, one, gotten some support from my buddies, but also had someone to say, "Hey dude, I'll do this with you." And I aim to be that kind of a guy that I'll go do this thing with you, even if it's inconvenient for me. Okay, next question. How did pain and recurring physical issues force you to rethink how you train, recover, and listen to your body? That is a game I'm still playing to learn that. But specifically training for the marathon, I'm running at least every other day. And there were some times I needed to run 5 days in that week. So I'd only get a couple days rest. Some of them were shorter, a little easier, and other ones were longer. But I had to really start listening to that. I couldn't skip foam rolling. I have a massage gun. I couldn't skip that. My sciatica was driving me nuts. I had to stretch differently. I had to roll out. I couldn't avoid those things and be able to get up the next morning, legitimately. And then nutrition as well. I don't generally eat really poorly. I mean, there are times that I do, but it was the fuel mattered a lot. So I was making sure that I was getting in high quality proteins, high quality carbohydrates, whole foods was something specifically for me, and definitely avoiding sugar. I know I had some sugar in my training regimen with the electrolytes I was putting in, but most of that was natural sugars, not cane sugar, that kind of stuff. So the recovery, there were days where I woke up and I was like, dude, I can't. Like, my sciatica is hurting so bad. And I didn't. And I'd walk or I'd do something else. And I know that I paid for that in the long run, but listening to the body is something that you have to get it's a tough thing because you want to push past your current limits and abilities, and you also want to listen to your body so you don't create injury. And that was something that I was focused on. Whether I did that perfectly or not, I did get injured, so I don't think I pushed that boundary too hard, but I definitely had some challenging times physically where I just didn't want to do it. Not just mentally, like my physical body was like, dude, this sucks. And just know that's part of the game. Like if you want to go do something hard, you got to train hard. Otherwise, you get hurt. So that's what happened to me. Next question. What did training in extreme heat teach you about effort, patience, and how environment shapes performance? I've already mentioned how hot it is in Arizona. I mean, it got up to 118 that summer in 2025 a couple times. And one of those times when it was 118 here in Arizona, I was in Colorado, Fort Collins area, and it was beautiful. I had to get a 14-mile run in, I believe, at that point. This was a little bit later into August. And when I left and it was 50 degrees and I got back and it was 55 degrees on my run, that was heaven. And then people were like, oh, we're going to go train in the Mile High City up there in Denver area. And don't get me wrong, like elevation matters, but when I'm running in the middle of trees and it's 50 degrees versus 100 degrees, man, that was a game changer. The elevation, the temperature, that makes such a significant difference. And so if you're training in one of the more extreme places, whether it's really cold or really hot, you got to be able to give yourself a little bit of a buffer and credit that you're working hard and doing some really good things, because it's going to be way easier on race day if you've planned it right. Like I planned so I'd be in Eugene, Oregon, that averages that time of the year between 40 and 55 degrees. So I'm like, this will be perfect. And it's flat. So that was another one that I didn't have to worry about a lot. Not that I had to go a ton in Fort Collins was up and down, but I'm actually going to show you the video of my course. I even got to stop by something that was, some of you might recognize this house. We'll see. But I'll show you a little bit of my route here, and you'll see the pace jump up and down as it goes through, so you can get an idea of how fast I was running. And again, you may or may not ever want to run this, but it gives you an idea of how quick I was going. And I loved that run in Denver. Still, it was challenging. Still 14 miles. You run 14 miles, it's not going to be easy, but I got through it, and I got to be able to spend time with my family up there. It was really fun. So check this out. All right, as you can see, a grand view of the Fort Collins, Colorado area that's just north of Denver. And so I took off from the hotel I was staying at, and I wanted to keep a pretty steady pace. I was looking for between 8:30 and 9-minute miles, and you'll see that kind of shift over on the top left here. The elevation was something. Right here, I was running around a pond. It was really beautiful. There was actually a 5K event going on in about an hour after I'd passed that. That was kind of fun. But the elevation was something I was worried about. But I don't know if it's running in between all these trees that made it really easy for me. But over here, there was like some terrain, a tunnel, really cool section here. I went out and back to a little train section, and I came back so I could make sure I was hitting my 14 miles. And as I was saying, the elevation was something that worried me, but because of the cool weather and the trees, I never felt like I was really huffing and puffing too hard. Running 2 digits is always challenging over that 10th mile. But here I started dropping down my pace to 9:30 accidentally, so I started to pick it back up, try to stick around that 9 pace. That's the beauty of having some tech on you, a watch or something that gives you some heads up of what your pace is. I had my watch and my phone, a watch that I'd borrowed from a buddy. But then I turned in here and got to run along. It was just so beautiful. So many trees. As you can see, all this greenery. I felt like I was running in the middle of forest, sort of, compared to where I'm used to running in the cactus and the heat. So it was just so refreshing to be up here, running along these little creeks and rivers. Then I turned over here and then started running along a train track that was off to one side of me, and that was a little bit drier, not quite as pretty, but it was still awesome. And then I took a little jog in here to go see a little famous dude. I wanted to check out his digs and stop for a second while I caught my breath and got a little bit of nutrition. Kept going here, kept that 9-minute mile pace, and then started dropping it down, but it kept going up and down because it was right about here. I texted my family and said, hey, I know you want to go to breakfast, but it's taking me longer than I want to. And they were patient with me. So I turned over here and was getting closer to, and knew I was getting closer to my hotel because I recognized a little more of the area. Came down this back way and tried to hustle it around that 8-minute mile pace. And that was back to the hotel. It was a great run, really great run.
Speaking of intentionality, what is your intention for listening to this episode? Are you simply passing the time, or are you here because you truly want to improve something in your life? The way we act is a direct reflection on what matters to us. So right now, while you're here, take a quick moment and rate this episode, or leave a quick comment. Pulling your thoughts into words is powerful, and it turns passive listening into action. When you act on your intention, that's where change happens. Your rating, your comment, your share, they're not just clicks. They're a signal that what we're building together matters, that conversations like this deserve to grow. Each action helps this message reach more people who are looking to live intentionally. And here on YouTube, tapping that like button, commenting below, or sharing this video with someone who matters to you is telling the algorithm that intentionality is worth spreading. It takes just a few seconds, and it creates a bigger ripple effect than you might realize. I created this show because I wanted to help people find their way, find the intentional way.
Next question. On race day, what expectations did you have going in, and when did you realize the race was not going to unfold the way you imagined? Yeah, interesting part of race day. So now we're in September, and we're in just outside of Eugene, Oregon. I'm there with my buddy. I had an okay night's sleep. I knew that sleep was critical. I had to go to bed early if I wanted to be able to have the rest. I needed to eat right. We went and ate a bunch of protein and some carbs that were useful the night before. So I'd really prepped with nutrition, and I knew how often I needed to take my gummies and how I needed to be able to eat bananas, and they had those stations along the way. I'd game planned a lot. And when we got out there, it was a little rural community and a smaller marathon, considering it's not like the New York Marathon where there's like, I don't know, hundreds or thousands of people running that thing. I was excited. I had tried to prepare mentally and emotionally. It was dark when we started. Daylight was coming out when we left. But we had to get there a little early to get our last preparations done and stretch and get ready. I was excited. I felt good. I knew that I'd be excited, that I could really easily run fast out of the gate. I could pace myself at a 7:30 or 7:45 mile. I did that a few different times with training, but not for 26 miles, 26.2. And so it was exciting. I was there with my buddy. It was small, and I saw a lot of moms and a lot of just regular people out there. I thought it was really cool, but it was cold. But I stripped off layers so I could be not freezing, but not hot. And I felt good about that. Made some good choices. Like all my gear, everything was good. My shoes felt really good. And as silly as it might sound, we all have to go to the bathroom sometimes, right? My body likes to do that in the morning, and I really appreciate that. But I know when I'm stressed out or when I'm doing something big, like I have an event or I have to speak or I have to do something big, that it's challenging for me. So I was hoping that I'd be able to go to the bathroom. And when we got there, there's some porta johns right there at the starting line. And I was able to go to the bathroom, and man, that like literally changed my mental game. I was like, oh dude, now I'm like all in. I got no worries that I'm going to have problems, with your digestion or whatever, because that's a challenge when you're running that long and that far. I had a goal that I wanted to finish in. Stretch goal was 4 hours. 4:15 was what I wanted to end it in, knowing that if I paced it right, I could do under that. But I just didn't know. The longest I'd ever run was just under 21 miles. In my training, it never said that I needed to go up over that. I think going back in time, if I had 2 more weeks to train, because I kind of condensed it into a 5-month schedule. If I had 2 more weeks to train, I would have hit a 22 mile, 23 mile. That would have been really nice because I would have known what that felt like, but I didn't. So from basically 21 miles to 26.2, I'd never tested that ground. But it started good. My buddy, he drank like a gallon of water the night before. And so like he was going to the bathroom every rest station we had. I felt bad, but I didn't know how else to do it. I felt if I stopped running, because in a marathon, some people could run because they're like pro athletes, but you can stop, go to the bathroom and get going again. Some people think a marathon is like, you cannot stop ever. Like you're going to need to go to the bathroom. Like everybody is. If you're drinking enough water, you're going to have to. So he was stopping, going to the bathroom. Like there's a station every mile, just about for the first at least 10 miles. And so he was doing intervals. He'd catch up to me, and then he'd hit a bathroom, and then he'd have to catch up to me. And so, man, I'm sorry. You know who you are. I'm sorry that I wasn't able to stick with you. But after he got the water out of his system, man, he was right there with me the whole way, and such an encouragement. I also went in with the mindset of, hey, I'm only going to use positive language towards myself, because I knew around mile 18 after my training, between 18, like it was mentally dark. My buddy, one time we were training, we ran 18 together, the same buddy that went on the marathon with me. And he was like, hey, let's go a little faster this last little bit. He was like, he's just a stud. Someday I hope I can be more like him. But he was like encouraging, like, hey, let's do this thing. And I was like, dude, shut up. Like, stop. I don't want to hear anymore. I just got really pessimistic. And I knew that in my mind. So I knew that no matter what, I had to say, I love this. I'm feeling good. I'm feeling great. I had to continually say those words out loud to reinforce that I'm doing fine. And it wasn't like I was trying to be passive aggressive with myself, or I was trying to gaslight myself. I just knew that if I could say it, it would give me an opportunity to believe it. Not to say lies to myself, but to say, yeah, I'm good. I'm good. I'm feeling good. I'm feeling great. And when we got past that, I'm like, I'll show you this. You'll see the video of where we went and how my pace changes considerably. Did really good for the first 13, all the way up to 20. I felt really good. And then, man, the mental game was there, but I was playing well. Like, I was playing well a mental game. I was positive. I felt really good with that. I did stick to that. I said positive things the whole way through. But then a muscle that had never hurt really that much before, my hip flexor, it's kind of the muscle that pulls your leg through. That's up there at your hip. It like pulls that muscle through, or pulls your leg through when you're running. That just gave out. It absolutely gave out. It didn't, meaning just to pull my leg through was excruciating. These two ladies, they were running a half marathon, and they started after us. And they were in like tutus and outfits that are kind of goofy, like almost Halloweenish. And my buddy was like, dude, we have to pass those ladies. And I was like struggling, like it was so painful to get that muscle to fire. And so we did eventually pass. I got there, but it was slow moving and slow rolling. So it was really hard. And I had all my trackers, all my equipment, all my stuff going with me, a watch that my buddy let me borrow. And I hit 26.2, and I wasn't at the finish line. And I was like, what? And so I don't know if it was a little bit off, or if my tracking was a little bit off. We drove it in the car the day before, but that was a mental breaker. I mean, we ran 26.6 miles. It was 0.4 miles longer than we had anticipated, and that was mentally brutal, but stayed positive, went through it, and finished. And that was so challenging. It was great to finish, to sit, to lay down on the ground. It was still beautiful weather, so it was nice. But it was the game day, marathon day, was tons of fun, cool people to be around, a lot of positive people. We were able to encourage other people around us. And there's a couple people that I got to pass them, and I just couldn't, or I tried to, or we passed them for a while and they catch up. So it was a lot of fun, great experience, and you'll see some of the footage here. All right, here's the big dog up in just outside of Eugene, Oregon. We took off from a school, and I have this sped up because it is a long race. All right, this is it. This is what we're doing. We're going here. We went out along a lot of kind of flat land, farmland, which I totally appreciated. We come down over here. My buddy kept stopping to have to pee, but we went around this. This is a long stretch here along a road. They had most of it blocked off, so it's kind of nice. We didn't have to worry about cars hitting us, but there was a lot of people coming and going through here. Trying to keep that 8:30 pace to 9 pace, as I was doing pretty well here. You know, we're up to that 8-mile mark here. Here we are in the middle of 8th mile, coming up on 9. Oh, that's beautiful. We take a turn back toward this mountain, and then we turn up again. Again, it's really beautiful, really nice weather. It was 50 degrees. I mean, couldn't ask for better weather. Sun was rising, looking just beautiful. So as you can see as well, elevation is super low. So elevation was easier. And then you come back out here and you do a little spin back. So it's an out and back, this race. And this is where, you know, we're up to the 14 miles. This starts getting into the headspace of it's challenging. Not easy to do.
Just about. What we got here? 16.6. All right. Final
But
push.
I've already seen all this track, so I know what's left. And that may be a little bit of what plays into the mind. I had to really focus on being positive. But we get this point, hover around that 9-minute mile pace, and then started jumping up to 9:30. Recognized it was a little bit slow, so we tried to hurry up, and then it slowed down. It was back and forth. I kind of teeter-tottered over on top of that. This is that long stretch. And now this 21 miles, like right here is where my training is exhausted, and it starts getting, you can see that pace jumping up to 10 minutes and 11 minutes because I had to walk a minute or two and then jump up. That 12 minutes is horrible. And then I get back to running, and that hip flexor was just killing me right here. We were trying to pass these two ladies in tutus who were running a half marathon or a 5K or something. And then right here, we hit 26.2 miles, and there's still more time to go. So then we finally finished up there, and it was what an incredible experience, but super challenging. That fast pace showing you what this video looks like is maybe doesn't do it service. I maybe should slow it down so it makes it look like it's a little longer, but it was just a wonderful race. And that was what it looked like from a map perspective. And this graphic shows you the different personal bests. These are my PBs. So this is on marathon day. I made a personal best in the 15K, personal best in the 10 mile, personal best in the 20K, personal best or personal record here on the half marathon, 30K. And obviously I had never run a marathon before, so it's going to be my personal record or PR, personal best there. And that was a little bit more of what my pace is for each of those. And again, excited to see these stats in hindsight, but going into it, didn't know exactly what it would look like, but I was happy that that's how it came out at the end of the marathon. Next question. After crossing the finish line, what surprised you most about how it actually felt? Oh man, this is possibly the worst answer I've got. I've seen marathon finishers and the flag raising and the just stoked and crying and tears of gratitude and happiness and joy. And when I crossed the finish line, it was like this combination of so glad I did it. It was an accomplishment I had set out to do, and I did it. And there was a bit of a hollowness in it because I didn't feel the like roar of excitement. I didn't have any friends or family there besides my buddy, and he was cheering me on. It wasn't like some big, like you see in these movies where it's like, yeah, you did it. It's like, all right, here's an apple. I mean, they had food out and cool stuff. It was a good organized thing, but it wasn't a huge big time event. I could have planned that differently. I chose a small town situation as opposed to a bigger marathon. And again, one of the biggest things that I learned is like when I ended these big long runs, I was like, I hate running. And that still was there. That still was there. I was proud of myself. I was happy that I accomplished it and I did something that I set out to do. Those is what made me feel good. But it wasn't like, oh, now I like running. And I don't know. I maybe expected to like it or feel differently about that. But it felt good. And then I was able to call my family, and they would have been watching me. I had a tracker going on me so they could watch me on a little dot on the screen, right? So they could see where I was, and they knew where the finish line was. Kind of fun. So it was good to talk to my family, and that was good. But it was just different, like without having some people there. But I felt good about what I did, and I was totally spent. And I needed about an hour or two to get my bearings straight. I wasn't super emotional, but I needed a little time to just chill out in order to get my mental capacity back in me. So great accomplishment, felt good about it, and it was just different than I had anticipated. Last question. Now, months removed from the race, what did this marathon really teach you about endurance, motivation, and who this experience is actually for? Well, whether it's for you or not, you're going to decide. That's not my decision. I learned some really important things. I think sometimes I am so very focused on the outcome or crossing the finish line, and when this thing happens, then I'll be happy, or when this thing happens, then this cool thing can take place. And that outcome, like the end goal is the goal, and the drudgery of getting out there really became what I was focused on. In all of 2025, one of my mantras, or at least like things that I was repeating to myself, is joy in the journey. And I've heard that a million times by different people, but actually enjoy the day-to-day because the event will take care of itself. And however you've trained and gotten comfortable doing what you're doing, the outcome will be what it will be, and you can't change that. So for me, when I recognized that piece, that made a huge difference. The effort that it took, the days that I wanted to quit, the effort, the 7, 8 mile runs, the 10, the 13, the 15, 18 mile runs that I had to consistently put together, I learned that is what makes you capable of doing a marathon. And if I look at life as a marathon, like everybody's gonna run a marathon, okay? If you look at life as the metaphor of a marathon, you're gonna run the marathon. Some people run it at a 10-minute mile pace. Some people run it at a 6-minute mile pace. Some people run it at 18-mile pace. And it's all personal. It's all up to you. We don't get to pick, we don't get to pick all the circumstances of our life. But the effort that we put in is where we control just us. And the journey that we control, the effort we put in, as we consistently do, the effort becomes easier. At the end of this, and even now, can run 7 to 8 miles without a lot of stress. I can do it. I can not train for it and run 8 miles and feel good. Running a half marathon is going to take a little bit of energy. But I'm just saying that the effort you put in makes you comfortable with the effort. And that was the biggest thing for me. Sometimes we think like the effort is going to make us eligible for the blessing or the goal or the outcome or the lottery winnings or whatever it is. And the effort actually just makes your muscles strong enough so that the effort is comfortable. I was comfortable running this much, and then afterwards I'm comfortable running this much, and then if I continue that effort, I'll be comfortable running this much. It's just getting comfortable with the effort. And that's the biggest lesson I learned, is you do the effort, you do the things that suck, you do the things that are not easy, the things that are challenging. And you do them consistently enough that now that effort is no longer challenging. Not because you're trying to make it easy, but because it is now how you do it. It's the way it is. And so when you can master that and when you understand the effort you're putting in, whether it's your parenting, whether it's your business, or whatever it is, the challenge in your life that you're working through, if you can put in the effort, the high intensity effort that's required, the outcome will take care of itself, and you'll find that you are comfortable in the effort. But it's when we let our effort drop to next to nothing, and then we wonder why we're upset or why we're unhappy. It's because we're not comfortable with the effort. So get comfortable with the effort, whether you're going to run a marathon, whether you're going to do something crazy, and I'll tell you other stories that I've done. But I really enjoyed the process of getting prepared to run a marathon, running a marathon and getting it over, and it wasn't what I expected it to be. I also didn't do it in the sense that I'm going to be a pro athlete. So my time was 4 hours and 21 minutes. I wanted to get it done in 4 hours and 15 minutes. Or stretch goal of 4 hours even, but even under 4:30, I'm not upset about that effort. I could improve it if I want to, and I don't know that I want to, but we'll see if that's in the stars for me. But I know that doing things that are hard and challenging is something that you don't necessarily want to do, besides you want to figure it out if you can do it, is a skill set worth getting comfortable with. And I just appreciate you being here with me, and that's all I got today. So thanks for joining me on this episode of The Intentional Way.
Thank you for joining us on The Intentional Way. I'm Bryan Hatch, and it's been a true privilege to share this time with you. If today's episode has inspired you in any way, shape, or form, please subscribe, follow, and download our episodes. Your support not only helps us grow, it also enables us to bring more insightful conversations and exceptional guests right to you. Living intentionally begins with a single step, yours. So let's make the most of it. Until next time, seek intention by being completely present.